Our first speaker is from our partner, Lyfta. And the lovely Anna is a fellow English teacher. So clearly there's a bit of bias here from Benny and I as English teachers as well. I've had the pleasure of hearing Anna speak before. And she's going to be opening today's event talking about character and values-based learning, a teacher's true legacy. So Anna, a very warm welcome on this sunny Saturday, and over to you.
Thank you, Hannah. I must say I'm pleased that we're running slightly ahead of time because I'm likely to run over. So yes, hello everybody. It's really nice to be here this morning. This is my second Diverse Ed event. I really enjoyed my first one, so delighted to be here. As Hannah said, I was an English teacher for 11 years and I now work for Lyfta as their professional development lead. So this session is going to look at how Lyfta's powerful story worlds can support character and value-based learning. And I'm really going to argue that this is the crux of what we do in the classroom. This is at the heart of what we should be doing in the classroom. So for those of you that have not come across Lyfta before, Lyfta is a 3D world of stories. And you can see our globe here that is covered in pins, and these pins are what we call story worlds. So Lyfta is actually a Nordic word and it means to lift. So our platform lifts the world into view for young people, but it also lifts young people and it places them all over the globe into these different story worlds. And story worlds are 360-degree immersive environments that you can take students into via your interactive whiteboard, or students can enter into independently on their own device. And in these immersive environments, there are unique soundscapes to make students feel as though they're really there. There are rich media articles for them to read. There are 360-degree videos for them to explore, but perhaps most importantly, there are short documentary films that connect your students with individuals from those communities from across the globe. So I just want to ask you now to consider, as an educator, what are your top 3 values that you really want to instill in the young people that you're working with? So just take a moment to consider that. Think about what 3 values do you really want your young people to come away with having been in your classroom with you. And I'm asking you that because we're now going to be meeting a young man called Dean Powell. We're going to be watching a short excerpt from one of our documentary films. And as you're watching, I would like you to look out for those 3 values that you have said are your 3 most important values. So I hope you enjoyed Dean Powell. Here's his video now.
Hey, bang.
Nej.
Den kan jeg også lave. Lav den. Det har jeg glemt. Gå derover. Så gør vi lige det.
Du glemmer meget åbenbart.
Jeg er klar over, hvor meget jeg skal holde styr på.
For satan.
Satan! Når du har banner.
Nej. Jeg hedder Den Pal Sing. Den Pal betyder hjælpsom, og mit efternavn betyder løve. Jeg drømmer om, at jeg kan blive fodboldspiller, når jeg bliver stor. Den skal jeg kaste mig på, den der.
Ja, det skal du da.
Jeg er en sikker, og jeg skal beskytte mit hår. Det går hertil, når jeg står. Mit hår er aldrig blevet klippet, og det kommer det heller ikke til, fordi vores hår er en gave fra Gud. Jeg har flettet det lige nu. Jeg synes, jeg bliver sådan nogle gange bange. Altså, jeg skal prøve at få det der med at være bange væk.
Vi ses, Stenbald.
Kom igen, drenge!
Jeg vil gerne prøve, når jeg bliver voksen, at være verdens bedste målmand, som Peter Schmeichel har været 2 gange.
Ja, sådan! Det var godt, dreng. Så kunne vi finde ud af det. Det er en pand på mål. Jonas kommer ud.
Men jeg bliver altså nogle gange bange for at kaste mig, fordi jeg tror, det gør ondt.
Det er en pand ud i det! Op med hovedet, dreng. Ja, så mange gange snakker om det der. Ikke noget panikmålspark. Johanna og Hans, det vil med at løbe.
Jeg skal prøve at få det der med at være bange væk, og jeg skal være bedre til at lave målspark, fordi det går ret tit galt.
Ja, hvis I vandt. Hvis I vandt.
So I hope you enjoyed meeting Dean Pal. As I've said, that's just a short excerpt from a slightly longer documentary film. But I wonder, which of the values that you said were important to you as an educator did you see in that film? I think it's full of values, and actually there's a lot more to that film, and you could extend even the number of values that you see there. And I think that lots of you, well, the majority of you will have units about Sikhism in your schools, but how did that film manage to bring those elements that students often learn about from textbooks or on the interactive whiteboard? How did it bring those to life? And I also want you to consider how a film like that is important for your students beyond those two reasons, beyond the values, beyond bringing Sikhism to life. Because I would argue that a film like that for young Sikh people in your classroom provides a mirror for them. And for those young people who are not Sikh or don't know anybody who's Sikh, it provides a door through which they can experience somebody else's life and learn to empathise with them as well by seeing the similarities that they have with them. So beyond our kind of moral obligation to nurture values in our young people, to make them the best that they can be, I want you to also be aware of kind of some of the statutory requirements that values and character-based education are required in your school. So, for example, the Ofsted inspection framework, something we don't often like to kind of think about, but actually, they will be looking for the behaviours and attitudes of your young people, as well as opportunities for personal development. Also, the relationship, sex and health education framework, the RSE framework, which was released in 2019 and updated in 2021. That also makes reference specifically to nurturing healthy and respectful relationships, which obviously values and character-based education are a key part of. And also our schools, obligation to provide SMSC or spiritual, moral, social and cultural education. Obviously, values and character education are very much bound up in that as well. So if you are interested in character-based education, you might want to go away and explore the Department for Education's character education framework. This isn't something that's statutory, it's some guidance for you. You can see here on the screen that there are 6 questions as a starting point for you to start thinking about character-based education in your school. So you can go away, have a look at those questions. If you're an early career stage teacher, a trainee teacher, might be something that you want to discuss with your mentor. I just want to make reference to how we've seen impact on young people in terms of their values and attitudes. So this is a particular case study we did at a primary school in Leicestershire, and students were shown these 6 pictures of people before they actually went into the Lyfta platform. And they were asked, out of these 6 people, who did they feel they had most in common with? And students chose overwhelmingly number 4, Michael from Finland, which was closely followed by number 1 and number 6. And what was really interesting is that after they met these 6 people through Lyfta's immersive story worlds and documentary films, their attitudes and their values changed. They went from deeming Mohammed, a Palestinian taxi driver living in Finland, the 5th person that they might have anything in common with, to becoming the most popular. He came out as first. So you can see the shift in attitudes and perceptions. Independent research at the University of Tampere in Finland as well has also shown that Lyfta's story worlds help to develop empathy and understanding and reduce prejudice and discrimination. And if you're wondering, well, that's great, that sounds wonderful, I liked that film, but how on earth do we get started? Don't worry, because Lyfta's got lots of pre-prepared lesson plans for you, over 230 in fact. So these pre-prepared lesson plans, you can see at the bottom of the screen there's what we call a task card. Those task cards guide students through the lesson step by step. And if you're presenting on your interactive whiteboard, takes the teacher through the lesson step by step as well. So if you are interested in getting involved, the simplest and most straightforward way to get involved with Lyfta is by signing up for Lyfta Starter. That's completely free. It gives you access to 2 of our immersive story worlds and all of their associated resources, which includes, I believe, around 15 pre-prepared lesson plans. The link is there on the screen for you to take away and use to sign up. And I know that Hannah is going to share that in her follow-up email as well. So that's everything from me. I think I've managed 10 minutes. So thank you very much for having me, and I'll look forward to any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. That was really, really useful. It's always wonderful to see the work that Lyfta is doing. Now, we've not had any questions from our audience. So just those of you listening, if you do have any questions for Anna, please drop them into the chat and I'll try to make sure that she gets access to those. But there is a question from me on this, because obviously teachers abide by some of the kind of rules and regulations around kind of values, and one of the values statements, obviously the ones about British values. So how does this work, and how does this fit in with the concept of British values?
Sure. I mean, from my point of view, I would argue that British values are worldwide values, right? Okay, there's nothing distinct about being British that makes us have better values than anyone else elsewhere in the world. And I think that that's what Lyfta shows us. If we watch films like Dean Powell, children see that Dean Powell, despite living in Denmark, despite having a different faith from themselves, he actually shares a lot of common features with them. He loves playing football, for example. He's frightened of, diving for the ball. I'm sure something that lots of little boys and girls go through, when they're playing football. So I think that being able to see the common values across the world, whilst also being able to meet that statutory requirement, because of course Lyfta does offer all of those things that you can tick off and say, yes, I'm teaching the British values, but actually extends that beyond that idea of just purely British values to saying, actually, what are our common human values? What brings us together, as well as what makes us, learning to respect difference too.
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful way of thinking about it, this idea of universality of experience. And also one of the things that struck me about the story of Dean Powell is that, he's not in India or the Punjab or in Pakistan. He's actually in Denmark. And I think children seeing the kind of the way that people live in different parts of the world, that kind of non-stereotypical thing is really important. And there's some really nice values in the chat actually that came up. I don't know if you'd have a chance to see them, but David Lowbridge Ellis has talked about the concept of listening over speaking and finding rather than assuming and giving more than you take. How does Lyfta help in reinforcing some of those things? So the idea of listening over speaking, finding rather than assuming, giving more than you take.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of our story worlds encourage young people to think about being a global citizen and what they can give back to their communities. So Dean Powell is just one of our stories, but there are lots of stories about being a good citizen and contributing to your community. But I think just the form, right? Documentary films forces you to listen and forces you to listen to voices that perhaps you've not heard before. And even if we're thinking about the documentary film form, I like the documentary film, but I've never watched a documentary film about a little boy who's Sikh in Denmark. So I think that just the way that Lyfta works means that children are forced to listen before they speak. And it's really interesting, some work that we did in Kent with some secondary school students there. The sixth formers actually said, as a result of watching some of the documentary films and being in the story worlds, they said all of our assumptions were undone.
Wow.
And so it taught them that actually we were speaking these things, we were saying these things, we were assuming these things, but actually by listening and by being forced to listen in a way, our preconceptions and our misconceptions were just undone.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrian McLean in the chat has asked about, the term tolerance within values, and it strikes me that you're saying that actually we're moving beyond tolerance here with immersing ourselves in these story worlds. Would you agree?
Yeah, completely. And that's why I love this metaphor of windows, mirrors, doors, which was coined by Rudine Sims Bishop, the American academic who studied American children's literature, and particularly the representation of African American characters in literature. And she talks about stories providing windows, mirrors, doors. And I would argue that our stories must, at the very least, provide mirrors for young people that do not see themselves represented in the curriculum. But beyond that, they also have to invite young people to step in and experience others' lives and to see the commonalities and to learn to respect the differences too. I mean, in that short excerpt of Dean Pell, I saw way more features of commonality with him in my own childhood than I saw differences, right? Though I've had no religion in my life whatsoever, but that thing of kind of feeling frightened as a child about certain things, wanting to do well, wanting to get better at things. There's a bit later where you see him eating food with his family, something that everybody does. And I think that Lyfta, in inviting young people to go in and explore these worlds, absolutely moves beyond simply tolerating others. It allows us to empathize and understand others.
Absolutely. And empathy is such a key skill. Just in our last minute, Anna, we've had a question about how do we access it? So just can you go back over, how do people access Lyfta?
Can I just, is it possible to just share that final screen again? Because actually there's a link there that you might want to make a note of if you are interested in accessing it. So if you take down that link, and as I've said, I know that Hannah's going to share that in her follow-up email as well. So take that link. That will allow you to access what we call our Lyfta starter package, which is our most straightforward way to get started. Totally free indefinitely, which means you get access to 2 of our story worlds, one in the UK, one in Ethiopia. Both great for values-based education, as well as being lots else as well. And you get all of the associated resources, including, as I've said, 15 lesson plans. And if you liked what you saw there and you wanted to come and do some training with us, then you will be kind of prompted to book some training with us, and that will actually give you 30 free days access to the platform. So you could really dig in and get to know all of the other story worlds as well.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's been
problem.
really, really lovely listening to you. I absolutely value the work that Lyfta is doing. I mean, I'm an English teacher. Storytelling is in my blood. And I think a lot of us understand the impact of storytelling and empathy as well. So thank you for sharing that with us today.